Peace and blessings, family. This is your boy Gerald. It is Sunday, the 25th of June, 2017. How is everybody doing? It's bright and early, family, here in Virginia Beach. It is humid, partly cloudy, but it is blessed. That's right, family. You are on the backside of your weekend. I hope that your weekend finds you well. Sidestepping the negative by grounding your feet, placing God first in everything that you do. Why? Because you're priceless. There'll never be another you. That's why it is all about preservation of your purpose. So this morning I got up, opened up the garage door, walked outside, and I looked out into the clouds as they passed by, allowing the sun's rays to cascade over me. I took that moment to give thanks for all that has been given, all that has been shown, and all that will be placed before me as I continue to ground my feet, to enjoy it, to embrace my purpose known as my life. And that was the moment that I started to pray, to connect, to give thanks to the angels, and just being, that word right there, being, because no one was guaranteed. You wasn't guaranteed that you were going to wake up this morning. Come on now. But you did. So right there should be validation for each and every one of you that you still got work, still needed to be done. There are those dreams, those natural talents that was given the moment you took your first breath, that must be prepared, because those things are going to be the same tools needed to navigate through your life. How about inspire those who are going to come on the same path that you blazed? So, while I was outside in the midst of praying, my spirit started to take in dialogue. The word dialogue, that means to have communication. And I realized something that really just doesn't get talked about because of that one word, fear. Fear. Finally, everything's a reality. And the truth of the matter that your reality is nothing but a reflection of your state of mind, not your state of being. Because until you change your state of mind, your viewpoint won't change. That's why some things tend to last longer than they should. That I've come to understand is that unconditional loyalty. And that's something that I've noticed for a long time, that we tend to have loyalty on things, but they're just there. Well, have you ever given it any thought that the things that should be in your life should be the things that not only exemplify who you are, but define where you're going? That's for somebody. And the one thing that I realized with all the negativity, all the justifications, I don't like using the term excuse, because I believe excuses are nothing but a wasted opportunity to speak on something that should have a voice to. But the one thing I notice is, as we progress as a society, as a community, as a people, as a individual. These are all the makings of you. So it's very imperative, family, that you must have dialogue within yourself. Because until you decide to give yourself permission to have dialogue, you won't understand what is being presented, what is being offered, or what is strategically placed to keep you from where you need to be. Who am I talking to? The funny thing about it is, we have a passive aggressive dynamic going on. There's a lot of energy and a lot of passion on the things that are deemed incorrect, but the same energy that is needed to correct, it isn't given. And I couldn't understand that. But then I started to understand that some people use that as a tactic to justify the personality or the traits exhibited by what's found within ourselves. It is easy to be said, well, that's just the way it is, Drew. Get over it. But you and I know that is nothing but a wasted opportunity to acknowledge what does not work in your life. And the real question should be asked is, why will you not give yourself permission to embrace it? What is keeping you from where you need to be, from what you want? Is it you? Is it the circumstances that are connected to you? Or is it the reflections or the remnants of choices made from behind? We all know that time waits for no one, and no one will be able to corner the market on time. That is why it's very imperative to give yourself permission to seize it. You know what I'm talking about. You've got a reminder of people saying, carpum diem, carpum diem, carpum diem. But you don't have people say, love me, love me, love me. So how can you seize the moment if you don't protect you? Because everything that you are reflective to, everything that wishes to have access to you, has to be internalized within you. So now we're talking vulnerability. Until you decide to allow yourself to be vulnerable with yourself, the reflections of your reality will match it. That's for someone. You know, I happened to be, I was asleep. I left the TV on last night. And a lot of times I'll channel surf. And just so happened, when I woke up, I heard a conversation. And I realized that the conversation was being uh, handled by women. I noticed that um, the channel that I had it on was public access, well, just regular public TV. And there were one, two, three, four, five, six, seven women, including the narrator. And they all talked about everything that had importance as a community front, but not one time in regards to an individual need. So it made me think, if we want to change our communities, it requires us to change who we are. And to change who we are, we must first have a dialogue with ourselves, which goes back to what? Having a connection with who you are. Maybe that's the reason why I always convey it all the time. Do you know who you are? Do you? Because maybe, just maybe, that's the reason why you are feeling what you're feeling. And in turn, it is reflecting back what makes your reality. Now, let's be real now. Life is not about a made-for-TV movie or a modern-day minstrel show. It's about a journey about a person that looks in the mirror every morning to wake up, to start another day, to step out into that world. But the commonality that I saw in that panel, everybody on that panel, no matter the education that was instilled in them, they were all broken. Every one of them, trying to justify the position that they took, only given on a public platform. So now you got to be responsible for what you convey, because we all know words once given cannot be retracted. So the real question should be this. We can easily say, I want peace, when in actuality, you should be screaming, I need that within me first. The real question is, why won't you give that? I mean, only you know this. But until you decide to claim it, protect it, your reality will not change. Because everybody has a story, but not everybody's going to earn the right to know it. So how you doing, family? You doing okay? Are you allowing yourself to rest? Are you drinking your water? Are you feeding your body what it needs? We're talking about your vitamins, family. The natural herbs. Because you do also understand that, not to sound shady, but the medical community needs patience. Oh yes, you do understand that. What you do today will be your impact tomorrow, or your reality tomorrow. So maybe now is the time to be selfless, not selfish, and go within yourself. I know there's some people that walk around with a strong front and they're terrified. They are terrified. They have hang-ups and blocks and soul ties. Oh yeah, they do. Meanwhile, they are on that emotional treadmill, only allowing time to be robbed from their happiness, their joy. Some people have actually convinced themselves this is my life and this is just the way it is and I gotta accept it. Who told you that? Who told you that? Because you are in a position that things are difficult, maybe that difficulty is what's going to inspire you to take that step to be your breakthrough. You do understand that where fear is, on the other side of it is insight. And on the other side of that insight is your wisdom, which is connected to your motivation, which on a basic term, I'm explaining your blessing. So how you doing? Why are you giving energy to things that do not exhibit the best you? I do one better. Why are you choosing to dumb down just to feel accepted? Do you realize you are the exception to the rule? Just like cogs on the wheel of time, you have a role to fulfill. Sure, that wheel will spin, but it will be out of sync. Kind of reminds you of your life now, don't it? But see, you can change that the moment that you acknowledge what is broken. See, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to get y'all to understand is this, and I'm saying this with love. It's not your responsibility to get them there. It's your responsibility to claim it. Because at the end of the day, family, you can't make anybody do what they don't want to do. And I think that's what's going on right now, family, because you're starting to see a lot of people as the temperatures increase. They can't deal. There's no discretion there. The filters are being taken off. And you're getting a snapshot of who you've been dealing with now, haven't you? Don't you realize that's your blessing? That's meant for you to see. You know why? Because it will have an impact on your free will on how you respond. You see, a person, listen, an angry person can't argue with themselves or by themselves. You know why? Because even if they try to do that, what's there, like a brick wall, is true. So it's just a matter of time when you're willing to accept that truth. Maybe that's why there's so many people putting energy in running from their lives, running from their truth when they should be speaking it. This is for somebody because it seems like you got all these things you want to do, but it's that one variable you just can't get past, can you? You can't get past it, and it irks you. It's irked you to the point that it's affecting your health now, huh? Because you can't sleep. Mm-hmm. And you see the validation because it's now affecting you here. You want to see how a person functions? Look at their eyes. You see weariness there? They stressing about something. And it's just a matter of time how it manifests out, but it has to come out. So, family, you're in your summer. Congratulations. What's your game plan? What is the one thing that you wish to see come to pass this summer? You already know what it is. The question is, are you going to follow it through? Or are you going to allow another season come and go? Only to have a position of, well, I could have did this. I would have liked to done that. I should have done this. Uh, nah. You know what that does? That makes you, that turns you into a manic depressive. And who wins off of that? The pharmaceutical community. Because they know that the one thing they know for true, well, one thing they know for certain is this. They know that only you can fix your problems, but they'll gladly give you something that is temporary, like an aspirin. You know, an aspirin does what? It thins out the blood, right? But no one goes deeper to wonder why that ache why that inflammation occurs. Why don't they go deeper? Because they need to still sell those aspirins. This ain't shade. This is, you do understand, everything that you need for this comes from the brain. It's natural. Maybe there's somebody listening to my voice is going to have the courage to say, you know what? I felt better. These soup coolers are getting away. I felt better before I started taking those pills. Every time I take these pills, I feel a certain kind of way. When in actuality, it's not the pills that you need. What you need is to have dialogue with yourself. What you need is to have the courage to make that decision that's long overdue. What you need is to finally allow yourself to love you more. So why are you stressing over them? Because the fact that they don't call you, the reason why they're not calling you is because they don't see priority in doing so. I say this with love. I know might be painful for somebody because you over there racking your brain and you're saying, well, you know what? I've given all this effort. I'm fully involved or invested in this bond, but I ain't getting it in return. Now, there's two things that are occurring that you don't even realize what's going on. Here's the first one. You know all that anguish that you're feeling right now? You know why you're feeling that? It's to teach you the value of a connection between two people. Not the individual. The individual is the lesson. It is the archetype of the bond. And the second thing is to remind you of where you once were. Who am I talking to? Cause see, you didn't understand that, but you've seen this storyline play out time and time again. Here you have, and you played with it. You had a position of, well, you know what? I'll get you before you get me, and before you get me, I'm up out of here. That's what most opportunists do. They wreak havoc and leave the scene of the crime before they're discovered. But the reason that motivates them to leave the scene of the crime is because they don't want to look at the person that was the perpetrator all along. That's the person in the mirror. So what I'm trying to convey to you is this. There are people that don't want you to position yourself on your true calling. Your true calling, number one, is to be happy. And no one can do that but you. Did you hear what I said? You. Nobody can love you more than you. I'm gonna let that sink into somebody because there's somebody that's been trying real hard to hold on to a certain relationship, and you thinking that, well, if I do it this way, or I give them that, that's gonna keep them around. But you feel empty inside. Some you actually feel disrespected, and you don't understand where the disconnect is. The disconnect, king, queen, is the fact that you should have never been there to begin with. But that's how the devil does. The devil will give you what you want. You want that fine dude. He got all the attributes that you want, but he won't love you. He won't love you. He'll gladly distract you. But when the chips fall, or when you get sick, or a crisis comes into play, you can't find them. They're not equipped for that. They're there to teach you that you deserve better. Now, let me make note of this. Because the truth of the matter is, there's still people think that if I don't see it, it ain't real. But you know that's a contradiction because you feel it. Don't you realize that's your spirit? That's the real you. That's the person that you need to allow to be seen. And the moment that you decide to allow that person to be seen, guess what? All those people that didn't have that same mindset or example, they can't walk with you no more. And you'll see it. You'll see it in the behavior first because they'll start to act out of pocket, but they won't have the courage to tell you. Mhm. They'll play little Nickelodeon games, which is kind of crazy when you think about it because maybe that's the reason why you feel emotionally unsafe because everything that they exhibited was a fraud. Now, this is not a moment to beat you up. This is a moment to lift you up. So, what I'm trying to convey to each and every one of you is this: the person that will earn the right to open the other side of your life. Because listen, you got a whole lot of life to live, family, a whole lot. But you got to get prepared. You have to be prepared for what you're going to be exposed to. That's what impacts your ideologies. That's also what makes up your biases. It's also what defined as your perceptions. What do you perceive? Because you have a lot of speculatives that say, well, the world is illusion. The world is flat. It doesn't matter if this world is a triangle. It doesn't matter if you can't relate here first. So if you're waking up this morning and you ain't seen your smile in a long time, you're not cheating them. You're cheating that little boy and that little girl that has that reflection in the mirror. It's your responsibility to get yourself back. And I get it because we tend to overexert or we try to financially invest into a certain response from those who have access to our life. But you don't want a yes man or yes woman. You want someone that's going to engage to bring the best you out, to be the validation of what you are. So if they're not doing it, why are you there? Only you know. I know there might be someone with y'all. Listen, I got these kids and he's a great provider. He gave me everything I want, but yet you are lonely and you there. What? What? Let alone the example that you're teaching your kids of what love should look like. You are the illustration of what love looks like because they see everything you do or what you lack thereof. There might be somebody, I'm going to throw this out here too, because I feel your energy. You want to take that anger out of your spirit. How bad you want to do it? You're so opinionated. You always got something to say, but you don't apply it to your life. The biggest problem of that is you've allowed yourself to settle. For example, you spend more time critiquing. You see these women out here who don't see their worth, but you admire their ethic to get themselves in shape. You ridicule that, but secretly you wish you were them. Not the application of what they do with their behavior, because their behavior and application starts here, and some will eventually wake up and realize to take the price tag off their physicality, because guess what? Physicality fades, don't it? But maybe that's what you need to do. Maybe your fear is, well, I need to take better care of myself. Why won't you? Don't you realize some of the best things in life are for free? When's the last time you took yourself out on a date? Hmm? How about tapping some of those things that are natural, your natural gifts and talents, your hobbies? Hmm. Why aren't you on that? Because you're worried about how you'll be perceived with your friends. Those ain't your friends. If they can't accept you for who you are, they can't build you up. When's the last time you allowed yourself to just go on a walk and go outside and take in the natural environments? Don't even think about going to the gym if you ain't willing to just go out for a walk. Hmm? Because guess what? That little boy, little girl inside you is screaming. Is screaming that you do so. Now, who am I talking to? Why are you constantly you looking at those guys and they got that six pack and broad shoulders, and you see the physical response that they get because they are very appealing to the eye. And here's the truth. Come here, King. Let me tell you something. She may love you, but the truth of the matter is, no woman wants a broke down man. This is just a fourth of it. Doesn't matter how deep your pockets is, because guess what? If you're not doing what you need to do, that broke guy that is doing everything but his finances, she gonna look at him. That's the truth. That's the truth. But you may be in a season, family, where you're not supposed to date anybody. And there's many days that you find yourself alone here. That's part of your growth. Maybe this is the time that you will take self inventory of where you've been, how you think lessons are learned. Insight comes from experience, not internalized, but through time, you have your clarity there. You're in the middle of your summer, and it would be a travesty and a tragedy if you do not seize it. Maybe this is the moment that you finally say, I'm going to do something different for myself. Hey, I'm going to go back to school, take a class, learn something different. When's the last time you just read a book? One of our most uh, national treasures is are dwindling away now. It's called your library, and that's systematically being done. You know why? Because history is being rewritten. There's a lot of people don't want you to remember, and I'm gonna throw that out there and I'm gonna get off of it. And here's your prime example. What's been going on the last 2 years? And I had a discussion about this this morning here. For the last 2 years, you've been seeing a lot of protests talking about um, all these Confederate statues that are everywhere. They're everywhere. And you've got groups saying, I want to tear that down. I don't want that. That doesn't represent me. But you do understand that what's going on is they're rewriting history. But history always repeats itself. You do understand that, right? So it's kind of hypocritical because we can turn around and leave it just one level. Well, Gerald, that that supported slavery. That's what slavery was about. Yes, but we can't ignore the fact that there were many minorities that were also part of that flag too. And let's call a spade a spade. Part of those minorities are connected to your family tree. So when you turn around and try to remove history, you basically saying everything that your family tree was about, you wanted that race too. But we don't want to look at it that way. That's why I always give grief to you, millennials. I got love for you. I do. Because you are going to impact the world when you become my age. But just know this, you're not grown. You're not grown when you're 18. You're not grown when you're 25, no matter what the government stipulates. You won't understand who you really are until you are blessed to see the age of 35. Doesn't matter what your monetary status says. Because when you're 35, you will have been given a certain amount of wisdom to either represent or unfortunately not claim. So you still think you don't, you still think your life is what it is? You still do? Do you realize when you keep a negative mindset, you being controlled? You don't realize that? Come on now. Come on now. You got people that don't give a damn about you. They look just like you. They want you to stay stuck because you're controllable that way. Shouldn't do that. That you're doing a disservice to what you stand for. Well, they'll clearly make up an excuse and labels. But when it boils down to, there's either you're a male or a female. You ain't even gonna go there, huh? Come on now. But when you turn around and say, why did you do this? Where was your emotional state? What was the motivation for you to embrace this position? Most of those people will not tell you the truth. It's too painful. I would be remiss, but I would not to say this, but I'm going to use this. I remember one time I was listening to jazz entertainer Robert Glasper. I like Robert Glasper. He's a pianist, jazz pianist, and he's been doing this thing for almost 10 years. He received a Grammy off of one of his albums called Black Radio. And the album was so monumental because it was eclectic with, uh, say, a hip hop vibe, but it had an R&B feel, but a jazz foundation eclectically put together. And one of the songs on there, there was a sound bite that Pastor T.D. Jakes had had stated in I guess a sermon, and he said that until you make the decision to acknowledge what is broken, it will stay broken. So if someone broke your heart, it will remain broken until you acknowledge it has. So you can't usher in change unless you acknowledge its position, its placement in the way you think. But we live in an era where all we do is copy, we mimic, we fake it to make it, and we get mad when the outcome does not turn out as we wish it to be. Why? Because it's not you. It's not authentic. You are. So if you're not claiming your life, wouldn't it make sense that everything around your life is not authentic back? That's why you used to hear me when I grew my hair. Energy out is energy returned. It's your spirit. Your discernment is like antennas. Energy sent out is energy received. The human body gives off two frequencies. Look it up. One is love, the other is fear. You can actually hear it, but I ain't gotta tell you because you feel it. Just like you're feeling what's coming out of my mouth right now. And I would be remiss to tell you what you want to hear when I know what you deserve is better. Why are you sleeping with the enemy? Why are you sleeping with the enemy? He said, why would you say that? Because they don't love you. Because it look good, feel good, don't mean it's good for you. But if they don't have a relationship with God first, they cannot protect you because they can't protect themselves. So why aren't we looking at that? Why aren't we acknowledging what needs to change? Because if you're putting a price tag over your life, you're shortchanging it. That's just like you being a precious diamond, which you are, but someone is valuing you as a cubic. Why? And meanwhile, everything that you have experienced, every setback, every disappointment, every regret, you are basically saying it was in vain until you decide to acknowledge it existed. And it existed because you feel it. That's why pride will always hold you back. There's nothing wrong with being proud, but pride, that is the number one tool the devil uses next to ego. See, intimacy, you can look inside you and do the inventory. But as long as you claim ego, you'll always be locked out of your direction. Who I'm talking to? So why are you mad at them? Why are you mad? When in actuality, the disappointment falls right in your hands, but it's felt right on your heart. And the tragedy and the travesty about that is, it's not that they don't care, but they will never understand what makes you and how you feel. That's where your disconnect is. That is why when you see this, excuse me, clubs be packed, don't they? Clubs be packed. Everything done in the dark, huh? The drinks are strong. Without them drinks, your mind cannot be released. The rhythmic tone, frequency, tied in with the altar of what you consume, sets up the placement of your decision making. We've all done it. I'm speaking on this because I'm here to tell you. I was that dude. I was that guy. Can't count how many women I've been with. And this is not to brag. No, I wasn't a dog. But if you wave a steak in front of me, even though I fed, instinct, I'm going to feed. And the only thing that's changed now is the women, the roles have changed. The women have become the predator. The men have become submissive and become the prey. The pain is still there though. I mentioned it in my last video. Did you realize that now same-sex relationships lead in domestic violence, lead in divorce rates now? Oh yeah, there's a story with one of the WNBA players got put on child support. When you play with the laws, you get the result of it. Now, what that got to do with what you saying, Gerald? Because I know that's what somebody's retorting. It's the fact that the person that's going to rightfully be in your life, they got a relationship with God first. Compromise that just to have you in it. Sure, there's nothing wrong with communicating with people, but if these people don't have your best interest by having theirs, by reflecting and representing theirs, first of all, a real relationship, a blessed relationship, they don't need you. They don't need you because they complete themselves. So that one of those, remember the movie Jerry Maguire? One of the greatest lies ever told. When Renee Zellweger used that line, you complete me. No, you don't. You complete yourself. You complete yourself. But that can't happen until you have a dialogue, which is intimacy. Into me, I see. So you know where you're going. Understand the value of your life. How about just be able to say the word no? That's what Carpenter Dean was all about. Why are you using that tone? Why are you using that term when you ain't applying it? I'm seizing the day, Gerald, but I'm in pain. Why are you in pain? You're in pain because you fail to acknowledge what needs to be corrected. How about taking back? Why don't you fall in love? Fall back in love with you. Doesn't matter how good his stroke is. Doesn't matter what he possesses. It doesn't matter what she knows and what she can do. None of that matters. None of it. That's like sprinkling sprinkles on a favorite ice cream. That's just Not, this means nothing. But if you let society tell you how your life is supposed to be, you will not live it. You won't. That's real talk. You won't. Now I'm getting ready to shut my mouth because I still got to step into my day. But I wanted to make sure that whoever needed to hear this, you got your validation. Stop worrying about if you're going to see them again. Stop it. Let me tell you why. Because the moment that you decide to love yourself, you're going to grow. And you're going to grow to such a magnitude that it doesn't matter where you are. They're going to see it. And it's going to cause them to question, especially if you have a good heart. The good ones always get away. You know why? Because God makes a way when there isn't. But what's required is preparation for the one. That one is going to have a story just like you, and they're being prepared. They're not rushing through their lives. You do understand every time that you take a risk or you embrace risky behavior, you take away from your life, right? You know that, right? It takes away from your spirit. Mm-hmm. It sets you up to be vulnerable to those who only want to exploit you. Who am I talking to? And now that I'm thinking about it, because I know somebody's saying, well, Joe, that's easy said and done, but I've got children with them. I'm tied to them. And I'm unhappy with them. You had a life before them, and you're required to have a life after. Did you forget that? But don't worry, even if they're not in your life, in the intended moment, in the intended time, you're going to see them again. In some cases, you're going to see them again and again and again and again. It's not for you, it's for them. It's to remind them what love looked like, especially if you are loving yourself. It'll be painful for them. It'll force them to humble themselves to the point when you least expect it. They will turn every stone in their lives just to have a moment to make it right. Why do you think people aren't brought in your life to begin with? What do you think a soul tie is? It's a teachable moment. The question is, will you embrace it? God is praying for you. You know I am. I see your worth for that, for that, for that. It helps me discern mine. Stop using that excuse every weekend. You waking up somewhere you know you should have never been, and you dumbing it down because you say, well, I got a preference. If you had a preference, you wouldn't be in pain now. And guess what? As long as you continue that, the person that was intended, because every time you embrace risky behavior, you take away opportunity for that one. You basically, every step you go back, that's a step they go back because they can't get to you. You do understand that the one will not find you by sight. They're going to find you by spirit. So while you got your little homeboys Your little girlfriend's telling you there's no good men out there. We are what we attract. You ever thought about that? Love yourself more because you deserve better. Have a blessed weekend, family. Claim your summer because they don't want to have nothing to do with it. That's okay. Because the moment that you decide to claim your summer and step into who you really are, guess what's going to happen? You're going to meet somebody. You're going to meet somebody new. They're going to teach you something too. Be blessed.